Welcome to the second module for the CTC 230 course, Organic Chemistry 3 or Biochemistry. This module is going to concern what we call proteins and amino acids, and it's actually a sister lecture to the carbohydrate module. And the reason that I say this is because carbohydrates are really your body's first attempt at an energy source. We eat carbohydrates that we call carbs, and those carbs get broken down into energy. The same thing happens with proteins and amino acids. They are an energy source. So it's not uncommon for us to buy protein shakes. It's not uncommon for weightlifters to focus on their protein to build muscle. So all of this really couples with carbohydrates at the same time. So there's going to be some similarities between the two lecture modules. If you notice in the carbohydrates, what we did is that we focused on the structure of a carbohydrate first. What makes it a carbohydrate? We'll do the same thing here. We'll look at an amino acid and we'll figure out what really makes an amino acid an amino acid. So we'll break down the structure. We will then take a look at how these amino acids hook up together to make these polymers. And we did the same thing with our sugars as well. We looked at the individual sugars and we looked at how those sugar molecules basically link up together to give us a polymer. So the same exact thing is going to happen here as well. And then we're going to focus a little bit on reactions. So we're going to look at reactions of amino acids and proteins, talk about what they do, how they behave, and what happens with them if I add this reagent to it. So the structure of the module is very similar to what you've seen before. This is just kind of the second part to the energy reserves that we know as food. So I first want to look at the word amino acid. And amino acid, you should be able to look at this point and kind of break down the definition. You should be able to understand that amino basically means the amine group. So I should probably see something like an NH2 or something at least similar to an NH2 group on an amino acid. And we will see that. Then I take a look at the word acid, and I think of acid as far as organic chemistry goes, and this is probably a proton donor, so it has a hydrogen to give off. And back last semester in a different course, we actually talked about the most common type of acid in organic chemistry, and these were carboxylic acids. So I'm going to put a question mark here beside of carboxylic acids because those are one of the most common type of acids that we will see in organic, and those are also the most common type of acids that we see in our body as well. So maybe the amino acids is a NH2 group coupled with a COOH group maybe. So we'll see when we take a look at our first structures of amino acids themselves. Well, first, before we even talk about lecture at all, I want you to know that on the very first page of the chapter, you will see a list of amino acid structures. And I highly encourage you to take a look at this table because it's going to be very important. So the first thing that I need you to do, and I hate to use this word because you know how I feel about this word in organic chemistry, and I need you to memorize this actual amino acid chart. So you need to go through, and if you're working out of the 7th edition, it's actually table 22.2, but if you're working out of an older edition or a newer edition, depending on the year, well, this table 22.2 might be a little different. But it's a table, and it will list all 20 amino acids that you should know and memorize the structure for. Yeah, I said memorize the structure for 20 of them. So table 22.2 will list the 20 amino acids that are going to be very important. Now, hopefully we'll make your job a little simpler because we'll look at all of the common things that these amino acids have that do not change, and we will only focus on what we call the side groups that change. So we'll simplify this down a little bit, but you can't study the amino acids the day before the test rolls around and believe to yourself that you can memorize these 20 structures overnight. It's just not going to happen. So again, my advice is what I've kind of said before with the carbohydrate structures. You need to sit down and then every week, because you've got about 4 weeks for this test to come around. So every week I would take at least 5 amino acid structures and I would sit down and I would draw them. And I would draw them from scratch and I would draw them 5 times a piece at least. And then I would go through and I would start writing the names of them and write the abbreviations of them. So that's going to be your first task. Your first task is to look at the first 5 amino acids, memorize those first 5 structures this week, and then I want you next week to take a look at the next 5, and then the next 5, and then the next 5. And then by the time the test rolls around, you don't have to worry about cramming those structures in the last minute and sacrifice yourself quite a bit of points, because I'm letting you know now that the first page really of the test is going to be, here are structures or here are names, what amino acid is it, and you're going to have to draw the structure for them. So I'm telling you now, ding 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 ding, test question, freebie points. All 20 amino acids will be asked on the test. I will give you the name of the amino acid. You will give me the structure of the amino acid. So, very clearly, I'm laying it all on the table. No tricks up my sleeve. First page, front and back. Worth probably 15 to 20 points of the test grade is to drawing the structures of the amino acid groups themselves. Okay, so first we need to talk about the idea of an amino acid, and the amino acids are very similar to the carbohydrates. These are the individual units, right? So I'm going to put here individual units. And these amino acids I'm going to abbreviate with an AA. And these amino acids can begin to hook up. And this is very similar to the carbohydrates during that time, right? So when they begin to hook up, well, this whole hookup is called a polymer. We had polymers of carbohydrates. Those were polysaccharides. We have polymers of amino acids, and we call these polymers proteins. So proteins are nothing more than just amino acids that are hooked up like a chain, one after another, after another, after another. These bonds are very important. Just like with the sugars, we called them glycosidic bonds, right? So these were kind of the bonds that connected the two sugars together. The same thing happens here with amino acids. We have a very special name that we use to describe the bond that makes these amino acids hook up. And these are called peptide bonds. So we're just kind of expanding our vocabulary a little bit here before we start talking about amino acids in more detail, as well as proteins in more detail. So peptides and proteins are polymers of amino acids. Sometimes we call them proteins, sometimes we call them peptides, but the bond that holds them together is called a peptide bond. Now, another word they could use instead of peptide is amide, because we're actually going to see that it really truly is an amide bond that is there. But, you know, pick your poison. It doesn't really matter which one you use, amide bond or peptide bond, who cares? You're explaining the same exact thing. It is a bond that holds the two amino acids together. Just like with carbohydrates, we can, if we wanted to, break this down a little bit more. We could have what we call a dipeptide. And of course, this is 2 amino acids that are hooked up together. We could have a tripeptide. And this is 3 amino acids that are hooked up together. We could have an oligopeptide. And this is anywhere between 4 to 10. Kind of like what the sugars were, there's really no difference there. and then we have the poly. And we can have a polypeptide, which is 10 or more amino acids after the chain. So polypeptide contains many. Proteins, when we think about a general protein, it's, a huge train of amino acids that are hooked up together. When I say huge, don't be surprised that these maybe would contain 4,000 or more amino acids hooked up. And there's 20 different amino acids that are out there that it can choose from. So we can get many different types of proteins from the set of 20 amino acids that we have to work with. So think of the amino acids as kind of like a crown box. Each amino acid is a color. And you can go in and pick out however many colors that you want and start drawing on the sheet of paper. And proteins are very similar. Proteins can go in to the crown box of amino acids, pick out whatever amino acid that they want, and then begin to basically draw a picture with it. And this picture is basically going to be a function, or it's going to be something that our body needs in order to move, in order to breathe, in order to make a muscle contract, in order to maybe carry iron through our bloodstream. So all the proteins are very important, and there's tons of different ones. And one of the reasons is because there's so many different types of amino acids that are out there for it to choose from. So in the next video, we're going to take a closer look at the properties of proteins. Why really are they important? What do they really do for us? And we will start looking at our first set of amino acid structures. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. You've only watched the first video. You can at least watch 5 or 6 more. I know you can. So I know that you're going to be devoted to this. I know that you're going to watch these videos. I know that you're going to enjoy them. So stay tuned. Play video number 2 in the amino acid module, and keep on trucking.